Welcome to the Center for Sports Studies podcast. My name is Brandon Podgorski, professor of sport management at Trine University, and I want to welcome you to this week's podcast. On today's podcast, I am joined by the co-managers of the Chicago Fire's Inside Sales Academy, Carlos Ames and Sam Bocken. After a career in ticket sales with the New York Mets, Carlos was tapped to start the Fire's Sales Academy last year. Sam is also a graduate of the Met Sales Academy and came to Chicago within the past 5 months to assist Carlos in growing the MLS in Chicago. In their role, Carlos and Sam are responsible for hiring new sales reps and training them to sell individual, group, and season ticket packages. In this episode, Sam and Carlos discuss how inside sales work in professional sports, why having the courage to leave home can accelerate your sports career, and advice for students looking to break into sales. I hope you enjoy the show. All right, joining me today on the Center for Sports Studies podcast from the Chicago Fire Sales Academy, we've got Carlos Ames and Sam Bocken. Carlos, Sam, great to have you guys with us.
Thanks, Brandon. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yes, Brandon, thank you for having us.
Well, it's my pleasure. And as we were just kind of talking about off air a little bit, I'm excited to have you guys on specifically excuse me, to talk about the Sales Academy, because, you know, we have a lot of students who are interested in working in sports. I think sales is a great place to start and frankly, to have a career, not just as a way to kind of get your foot in the door, but a way to actually have a really great long career in sport. And one of the ways to do that is to start with the team in their Sales Academy and kind of work your way up. So before we do that, though, I want to hear from both of your backgrounds and, you know, where you came from, jobs that led you to what you're doing now with the Fire. So let's start with Carlos, since he's the manager, I guess, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. One of the co-managers here with the Chicago Fire. I was originally born and adopted from Guatemala. I don't talk about that too much, but I'm getting more comfortable with it. And I grew up in Williamstown, Massachusetts, so really small town community, college town, middle of nowhere kind of too. Like, without the college, there's not a whole lot, to see other than the mountains. But for me, like, grew up playing sports, met some of my closest friends playing sports. Really, again, being a lifelong athlete and a competitor, like, sports have been a part of my identity since I can remember. Grew up playing baseball and squash competitively. So for people that don't know what squash is, it's not just a vegetable. It's also a sport. Also just made the Olympics in 2028. So really excited about that. But ended up being recruited to play collegiate squash at Bates College in Lewiston, Maine, one of the little Ivy League schools. I'm, proud graduate. And there I was a philosophy major. I was a religious studies minor. Always kind of knew from a young age, I think when I gave up baseball, that I wanted to work in professional sports. And for that first year out of college between 2017 and 2018, didn't have a job. It was kind of tough because all my friends had, landed their dream jobs. And I was kind of left, like, again, I knew sports was very competitive. We didn't have sports management majors, but knew that I wanted to work in professional sports. So really spent that, year out of school networking, tapping into my family network, my professional network, anybody that works in sports that I could. And ended up about a year later in April of 2018 being hired by my favorite team growing up in baseball with the New York Mets. I did inside sales for about 7 months, was promoted to the account executive level. And I was on a group sales and service team, so primarily selling new business groups, so things like families, businesses, camps, nonprofits, schools, things like that. And I've always been like the friend in my group that's brought people together. So for me, it was kind of like a natural transition. Saw a lot of success, selling for the Mets. I worked there for 5.5 years. My last 2 seasons, I was one of the top sellers across the entire floor. And always knew I wanted to get into leadership pretty early on. So about a year ago, almost a year ago today, in March, landed this position as co-inside sales manager here at the Fire. Was hired to be the first inside sales manager in this organization's history. And I've had a lot of fun. I mean, this has been the furthest I've been away from home, but I really love the city of Chicago. It's a cleaner New York. I can't complain. I really couldn't see myself working or living anywhere else in the country right now. So that's a little bit about me.
Hey, so I guess I'll go next, I guess. So my name is Sam Bocken. I'm the other co-inside sales manager over here with the Chicago Fire. Didn't have the illustrious athletic background that Carlos had, but I went to the University of Iowa. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, originally. Was a journalism major for about a week, and then I realized that I didn't really want to do a lot of writing, so found sports management. So wanted to give a huge shout out to all the professors along the way, especially in sports management, that gave me the opportunity to get my path into sports, and worked for our athletic department and the marketing sector for 3 years. Loved it. Did everything from running social media to shooting the t-shirt gun. So that was a lot of fun. And then sales kind of just found me as a way to, get into the industry fast and to grow my career exponentially. So right after I graduated, that's kind of when COVID hit. So there weren't a lot of teams to hire people to fill up the stadium when you couldn't have fans in the stadium. So went back into grad school, got my master's degree in sports management. And then in December of 2021, got an offer to work for the New York Mets and their sales team. So it was a little bit of a culture change, as you can imagine. Iowa and New York are a little different places. So it was interesting, but knew that I didn't want to get sent back to Iowa on the wrong terms. So I wanted to be the hardest working person possible. So found a good friend of mine to this day who was in my inside sales class and said that it was going to be me and him to make it out of there. So, within 4 or 5 months, I was the top inside sales performer, won the inside sales rep of the year in 2022, got promoted to the new business team, which if you're not familiar with new business, it's pretty much season tickets is the main focal point. And within a year and a half, was the top performer on the sales floor. Won the new business rep of the year, and then 3 months ago, got this opportunity to be co-inside sales managers with Carlos, and obviously we have a great relationship working with each other in New York. So it's been a great ride so far. So, and I'm excited for the season to start. So that's a little bit about me.
So I think what jumped off the page when I was looking at both of your guys' backgrounds, and Sam, I think I'll start with you because you hit on it, and Carlos, you talked about it too. But I mean, you're coming all the way out from Iowa to take a job in New York City, right? Night and day, being a Midwest kid myself. So, I talk a lot about that with our students. Hey, you want to work in sports, you've got to be willing to move because, there's just not a lot of jobs in, was it Des Moines or Dubuque?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's just not a lot of jobs in Des Moines, Iowa. Right. So, what was that like to make a big leap to New York? And then, Carlos, if you want to talk about, coming all the way from the Northeast and now to Chicago, what's that transition like? And, do you feel that it's worth it?
So it was probably the hardest thing that I've ever done, but it was also the most rewarding thing that I've ever done, because if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have the career that I've had so far. It's definitely difficult to be at a place that you're not familiar with, really far away from all your friends and family, but that's how you get out of your comfort zone, right? And I think the fastest way to move around in sports or to move up is to be open to moving around. And that's not just with sales, but that's with anything. I mean, look at how many different coaches, for example, bounce between city to city, right? So I think that's one of the things that helps you focus on your career a little bit more is when your back's against the wall like that.
Yeah, I agree with Sam a lot, and it's really interesting because we're both in like opposite positions than what we were, just in. So for me, I always grew up. I grew up going to New York a lot for squash tournaments and family weekends, and we have a lot of family friends that have apartments in the city and stuff. So very familiar with the city. That was a very easy move for me. Again, Des Moines and Williamstown are kind of similar in the sense like you kind of have to branch out to one of the big cities, either the Midwest or the East Coast, to really get your career started. And that's not a bash at anybody that, works out there. My parents, work in the surrounding towns. But for me, like, again, sports is so limited. Like, you have to move to one of those major cities to start your career and in a lot of ways advance it. On the flip side, when I moved to Chicago, like opposite for me, like I have a much smaller network in Chicago. A lot of my family, and again, like I said, my personal network's in New York on the East Coast, but I really saw it as an opportunity for personal and professional growth. I'm such a big believer on like betting on yourself, stepping outside of your comfort zone as much as frequently as you can, because that's really what sales is in a lot of ways. It's just being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I've loved, seeing a different part of the country, living in the Midwest. People are just naturally, they call it the Midwest nice. They're very friendly, and it's really easy to make friends and meet people. So yeah, I've it's been a year, and I've seen a lot of growth, like I said, personally and professionally, just what feels like a short amount of time.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there. You're talking about career growth, and both of you guys were at the Mets. There's no guarantee you're going to be a manager there. I mean, you might have managers there who are there for a long time, and so you may have to move. I mean, one, just like you guys did, to get your opportunity, get your start, but then two, to advance your career, you may have to be willing to move. So those are both great points. Now, talk to us about the Sales Academy, and specifically, I mean, you guys had great experience there in New York, and I've gotten to know Tyler and Jimmy over there a little bit, and they're great guys and run a great academy. So you could talk about that, but also about with the Chicago Fire, probably specifically, like what is that? If a student's interested in getting their start in sports sales and they go into the academy, what are they doing? What can they expect? And then from there, once they're done, what are their opportunities?
Yeah, I think what people can expect is a lot of training and a lot of investment personally and professionally into the person. Sam and I very much care about our reps. We want them to succeed. Um, what's really cool about inside sales is it's an entry level sales position. It's a 9-month program here at the Fire. And we teach sales process, we coach, and we teach on technique, all that good stuff. There's no prior sales skills that's needed or required for this kind of position, being an entry level. So a lot of the people that we're overseeing and managing are people that are pretty fresh out of college and just starting their professional career. So with that comes there needs to, at least in my opinion, there needs to have a lot of coaching, guidance, and that's our inside sales program, big emphasis on the training and development. We have a really top tier leadership team, I believe, that we've all been top sellers and high performing reps for our respective cities and our respective teams in the past. So we've seen the success, and it's really our job to kind of pay it back and teach the next wave of sports sales superstars. So yeah, that's really what excites me, is whether it's an internal or external promotion, we're going to try and help advance people's career to where they want to go.
Yeah, and I think the training happens every day, right? And there may not be breakout sessions that we do every day, but there's going to be active coaching, And one of my favorite things to do is to walk around when people make calls, and if I see someone, hang up the phone with a little defeated, Carlos and myself will always ask them, like, hey, talk to us about that phone call that you just had, and try and coach him to how it can be better, right? So I don't think the purpose of inside sales is to get out of inside sales. I think the purpose of inside sales is to get out of it and hit the ground running, right? And to feel that you're confident to not only take that next step, but to be elite at that next step. So that's what we try to make sure our reps feel like.
And to take that a step further, we go on a lot of sales meetings with our reps when they're first starting out. We run the meeting, we show them our process, and then we do takeaways after, and hopefully they can learn and get to a spot. They will get to a spot where they can do these meetings on their own. But Sam and I are very much in the weeds with our team, and whether it's listening to calls or going on sales meetings, we're doing that as much as we can.
Now, we've talked to a lot of people who are kind of more starting in the inside sales and doing the day-to-day and all the cold calling and things. I don't know how much we've talked on this podcast. I think this is like episode 70 or something. How much we've talked with managers. So for your guys' role specifically, are you doing a little bit more like mentoring and coaching? Is that the majority? And obviously recruiting and hiring probably. I'm assuming that's the majority of your day. Are you working the phones and doing sales as well, or is it just mostly kind of, mentoring and training?
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of all that: mentoring, coaching, managing. I know Sam, at least I think Sam would agree. We don't really look at ourselves as managers. We more so look at ourselves as coaches, right? We're trying to train and coach just like an athlete would, right? We're teaching the process. We're giving feedback on a call, because that's the cool thing about our position is anything that our reps hear on the phone or in an in-person meeting, chances are that Sam and I have heard the same thing, and we can use our experience, or at least use our judgment based off experience to help them make an informed decision. So it's a combination of all of that, but we definitely don't leverage our title to any specific advantage. if anything, like at least I look at myself as like an older brother figure to the team.
Yeah, and recruiting is also a big part of it too. But we want to make sure that we're spending most of our focus on the people that are in the building with us. So that's probably what I would say there. So I'd say it's probably 75-25 on the managing versus recruiting side. But both are equally important. It's just where we deviate our time.
So let me ask you this, because you said, you have some people who've come who maybe didn't have an interest in sales, or maybe they didn't even have a sports management background, but obviously they caught your eye somehow. So you're out recruiting. I know you've been involved with the National Collegiate Sports Sales Competition. So what type of person is the Fire looking to hire, specifically with the Inside Sales Academy?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking for someone who's hardworking. I mean, I think people will say a lot of times, like, find the personality, and you can always teach the skill. And I think that's what sales is. So, there's three intangibles that people can control every day that no one can coach. And one thing that I firmly believe is, your hard work or your work ethic, your positive attitude that you can bring every day, and your level of coachability, right? And that's not just what the Fire are looking for, but that's probably what any sales academy is going to be looking for. And those are things that only you can control. Like Carlos and myself can instill that into somebody. So as long as you have those types of intangibles, the sky's the limit for you in this industry.
So how do you get noticed by a team? I think that's some of the feedback I get from students. It's just hard to kind of get, I mean, you guys are going to put out a job posting and you're going to get 400 resumes like that, right? So what are some of the things that students need to do specifically, if they want to get into sports sales, that they can do to get noticed and cut through some of that, I guess, minutia of all these resumes and applications that you guys are accepting?
Yeah, the reality is it's a very highly competitive industry. There's thousands of people that apply for these roles every single day, and I think it's really important, again, to differentiate yourself, and whether that's gaining real world experience through on campus. For me specifically, I was a sports information assistant at Bates. All my best friends were on the soccer team, and I was basically like at games, like logging notes, tracking the score. And while that wasn't specifically sales experience, like it showed that I was making the effort to learn more and get experience. So I think background's important, but it's more so like everyone wants to work in sports, but are you actually making the effort, going the extra mile to actually get experience and not just say, because that's one of the things is we're looking for the best employer. We're not looking necessarily for the biggest sports fan. So experience, again, we're very understanding that when you're in college, there's only so much experience you can get. But what I look for specifically is if people are actually putting those actions into play.
Yeah, just at least making the attempt, and I think, Carlos, that's a great story, getting involved with your SID. And, I think just about every college in the country, their SID would take any help, whether it be free help or anything else. And that's a great way to get that experience and get that on your resume. So do you know again, this is something I tell my students, so if I'm wrong, this is a great time for you to push back on me. Is there any differences between selling like soccer to football to baseball to basketball? I get students who like grow up and like, I'm a huge NBA fan. I only want to work in the NBA. And if I don't work in the NBA right out of college, I'll never get my opportunity. And I'll say, well, you might have an opportunity working with the Fire and learning some of these skills, and they're going to be transferable, to a thing like basketball. So, are they the same? Are there some differences? What have you guys experienced starting in baseball, now coming over to soccer?
Yeah, well, I would say the biggest difference is the number of games for sure. 81 games versus 18 home matches, I believe we have. Secondly, we're not as big name as some of the baseball teams or football teams out there. Like the soccer is just not as most popular of a sport. So what we're really doing more often is focusing on selling the experiences around coming to our matches, especially because we're in a stage right now where we're trying to expose as many people to our product as possible, right? So it's like, how can we get creative? How can we ensure that fans are having a great time when they're coming out to our matches? And it's not as easy as you being able to say the sports team and people immediately resonate that. So that's probably one of the biggest differences that we have.
Yeah, the sales skills and the sales process that carries over from sport to sport, which is awesome. I look back on my experience, and I was very thankful to start with again, I was a diehard Mets fan growing up, so I'm kind of hypocritical for saying this, but it's really not so much about the team you work for, but it's more about the people and the leaders. You want leaders that have a proven track record of success in their roles, developing people's careers, and just people that care about you, right? And so I was very fortunate to have both when I was at the Mets at the time. And we don't sell wins and losses. To Sam's point, we sell experiences. And so it sometimes pays to sell for a losing team, because that really teaches you the skill set. Because anybody can pick up the phone and answer the phones when the team is doing well and take orders, but you really want to sell when the team is not doing well, because that's an impressive thing to do. It's not easy. So we're very understanding that soccer is still, in my opinion, it's peaking, or it's close if not peaking right now. It's really blowing up, but it's still in the shadows and to some degree from some of the other big sports. So yeah, it's a little bit of a tougher sell, I would say, but Sam and I, and we're very accustomed to it. We feel like we can really coach and train our reps to do it. So
okay. So when you're thinking about the Fire, well, how long has the sales academy been around for the Fire?
Our inside sales program is still very new. We started last March, and yeah, I started a week like March 7th, I think, and then a week later we had our first inside sales class start.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year in just a couple of weeks. So it's exciting, but it's not as established as some of the other teams out there.
Okay, because it does feel like some of these sales academies or inside sales classes, they're still kind of in their infancy, when you think about kind of the history of sport. So, with the Chicago Fire, and I think it's great because you've kind of got to mold this kind of maybe in your image a little bit, Carlos, and now Sam coming in and helping with that. What do you guys think that you do well, maybe as compared to other teams, or just if you don't want to compare yourself, maybe what are some of the things you just kind of hang your hat on and just have points of pride specifically with the Fire?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into any comparisons, but one thing I think Carlos and myself pride ourselves on is the level of coaching that we try to give to each single one of our reps, right? And I feel like we ask each other every day, like, what can we do to make sure that we're putting them in a position to be successful, right? And it's 100%, you get out what you put in. So, the more that we are able to essentially give to them, we'll know that they'll be in positions to be successful. So I would say that the level of coaching, and we honestly just love to have fun while we're here. I mean, this is not a typical 9-to-5 job. Like, we work for a professional sports team, and being in sales, you want to make sure that you're having a great time and enjoy the product that you're selling, even if there's not wins and losses on the pitch. But that's some of the things that we pride ourselves on.
Yeah, there's a few things that come to mind over the past year. So we've had a few, like 6, I think, inside sales classes come through the doors of the Chicago Fire's inside sales program so far. 4 or 5 of them were promoted in what seems like a pretty quick time frame, so 3 to 4 months. And I think that's pretty unique in our business. Like, they stepped in. That's what's really exciting, I think, about and unique about the Fire is for people that come in, there's an immediate impact that they can make. They can drive results, drive revenue, but also see, what feels like short-term career growth and not a lot of time. And yeah, that's been really exciting. And some of these, reps that I'm referring to are top performers for the entire sales force. So people that are, again, have been here for maybe a year or less, and we have reps that have been here for X amount of years. So that's really exciting, is knowing that Sam and I have played a part in people's growth and development in a short amount of time. We had 60,000 fans for the October 4th game against Inter Miami last year, which was a record in MLS and attendance. So that was really exciting. That was obviously a highly anticipated match, but to see all that come to fruition, all the months of hard work, and then just all the stands filled up with great energy, that the Fire won 4-1. That was something that I pat myself on the back as just playing a minimal, small role in that. And then our leadership team too. Kind of talked about like surrounding yourself with really great leaders and mentors. My VP Jake Winowich was actually my boss in New York for 5 years. So he was our senior director of group sales, someone that I know believes in me, and I really believe in him as a leader. And we have a really great working relationship and personal relationship. And then Dave Baldwin, who's the president at the top of the food chain here, he started his career out in inside sales actually, and he was recently just in the Forbes under 40 list for the Sports Business Journal this year. So I was hearing stories about Dave when I was in inside sales, about how well connected he is, how much success he's seen in the industry in a short amount of time. And for me, again, Jake and Dave are some of the best leaders I think in this business, and it was really a no-brainer for me to want to continue to work for them. So.
Excellent. So if I'm a new rep coming in to the Inside Sales Academy there with Chicago Fire, what can I expect? What would a day-to-day kind of workday look like?
Yeah, so outside of the typical onboarding when a new rep comes on, it's a lot of calls, emails, touch points, booking meetings, completing meetings. Hopefully those meetings lead to sales, right? It's the day-to-day is pretty straightforward. And while you're going throughout your day-to-day, expect Carlos and myself to be coaching you and helping you without each and every single call that you're making, right? So that's what I would say that the day-to-day is like.
Yeah, picking up the phone. We call it smiling and dialing over here. So connecting with fans, trying to get them excited about the Fire, trying to spark up a conversation about soccer, getting them excited. And the goal of the phone call that we teach and coach on is not necessarily to sell tickets, but to build a relationship, build a rapport with someone, and then ultimately, get an in-person meeting set. And that's when we like to, again, get people down at Soldier Field, have them test drive the seats, give them that private VIP walkthrough. And, it's a lot of fun. So we're trying to set meetings and build relationships with people. It's a lot of fun.
And then what are they usually doing on game day? I'm assuming maybe they're kind of servicing accounts and shaking hands, kissing babies, things like that.
Yeah, we're, we entertain clients, like we do seat visits. Reps also can invite prospective clients out to matches, so we can give away complimentary tickets. Basically set a meeting at the stadium before the match, and we'll do like a happy hour type of event before the match, some light food and drink. A couple of our executives will speak, Jake, sometimes Dave, sometimes somebody from our soccer operations department. And then we also have like sales booths, so sales tables. So when people are walking around the stadium asking questions or needing to find their seat or needing to figure something out, our reps can be resources for people and strike up conversations and try and generate revenue in the match. So it's we're basically just ensuring that people are having a great time and also trying to find opportunities where we can continue to grow the Fire fan base.
And so for those students, and this will be, I guess, the thing we can wrap up on, for those students who are getting ready to go to Atlanta for the Sports Sales Championship, or, were participated virtually back in November, and now they're ready to start applying and reaching out to teams. What advice would you give them? Maybe kind of start with the Atlanta piece. So they're going to be going and competing into the national championship. What advice would you give them as they compete? And then, just for students who are applying for jobs right now, like what do they need to be doing to break into sales?
Yeah, as someone who was in those students' shoes around 3 years ago, and now sitting here now getting ready to, actually we just booked our flight to Atlanta. It's funny you said. So please put yourself out there, right? Like I always use the phrase, you don't get what you don't ask for, right? So, if you're not willing to put yourself out there, I mean, this isn't the right industry for you to begin with, right? So this is an opportunity for you to showcase your skills in front of, all the professional sports organizations that are going to be there. I mean, there's tons of them that are going to be going. So it's an amazing opportunity. If you're not willing to put yourself out there, you're doing yourself a disservice. And at the end of the day, you have nothing to lose, right? Unless you already have a job offer from some teams, like this is your opportunity to shine. So that's what I'd say.
I totally agree. Yeah, nothing to lose, but everything to gain. This could be the start of someone, your career. So, do your homework on employers, do your homework on leaders to a certain extent. You don't need to know everything or their life story, but know enough where you can, not sound creepy, but reference something. And yeah, just put yourself out there and bet on yourself, right? Like if you're making the trip down to Atlanta, like participate, ask for feedback. Make a really good impression with everybody you speak with. And if you can connect with people like hiring managers beforehand, go for it, do it. So, yeah, big believer in just, stepping outside of your comfort zone, as cliche as it sounds, and go for it, right? You have nothing to lose, but everything to gain. Believe in yourself.
So last question then, because you brought something up that I also have students ask about a lot. When you say like reach out to those hiring managers, what's the best way to do it? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn? Like how do managers, especially, you guys there in management positions, prefer that a student reaches out to you to kind of start that kind of networking component of that's so important to work in sport?
I would say everyone's a little bit different, but I think LinkedIn is the best way to do it. I mean,
Okay.
you can look up exactly that person's role, and know exactly what organization they're working for and be able to, connect with them and make a personalized message there. If you personalize your message instead of just blindly connecting with people, I mean, we're going to look at it, right? Whether, we accept it or not. So that's it. It's the best way for you to throw up a shot, is what I would say.
Yeah. Email, LinkedIn. I would, for me, like, I'm always a believer in being respectful of people's time. And so, there's something to get out in respect of like a cold call. But I think the professional thing to do is an email. Again, LinkedIn, we're also connected nowadays. But yeah, like make a personalized or customized message. Know that not every message will be read or you can get back to everybody, but if you can like stay a little bit persistent while still maintaining professionalism and respect, you'll start to build familiarity with people, and it can benefit you, and you can connect with the person. So because that's realistically what you're going to be doing in a role, right? There's a level of persistence and tenacity that you have to have. So if you just get one cold email or LinkedIn message and you don't respond, like, or you don't follow up, like, how is that going to translate to the actual position?
I love it. Professional persistence. It's
Yeah.
like you've been to one of my classes. So I love it. Well, Sam Bocken, Carlos Ames, managers of the Inside Sales Academy at the Chicago Fire. Guys, really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Hey, Brandon, thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your time, Brandon. This is a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Be sure to check out our next episode on March 22nd as we talk with the operations manager of the Chicago Blackhawks, Morgan Patrico. As always, we'd like to say a special thank you to producer Josh Hornbacher for his work behind the scenes. This is the Center for Sports Studies podcast, broadcasting from the Trine Broadcasting Network. If you like this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the Center for Sports Studies podcast on your favorite podcasting platform and give us a 5-star rating if you like what you heard. For more information about the Center for Sports Studies, please visit trine.edu. Also, be sure to like the Trine Center for Sports Studies on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and X at Trine CSS, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.